Greetings everyone, I am Failure to Report, welcoming you to the worst damn space sim channel ever. So, first off, I've had a lot of people tell me, hey Failure, CIG has put a lot of effort into putting out hot fixes for Star Citizen with the Delta Patcher. They're addressing all the concerns about frame rate and performance and whatever. And I want to applaud you, Ben Lesnick Shill account. You did manage to get me to log back into 3.0 to see what the state of things were after CIG has had their hands on 3.0 for a little over a week now. And honestly, I was just so tired last night when I did get into game that I honestly didn't even think to record anything, which was a real shame because honestly, the performance from last night when I did get in was so bad that I was just blown away that it could actually get worse from the first time I played 3.0. And when I tried to get back on today, all I got was a handful of black loading screen simulator and a ton of error 3007 crashes for at least half an hour until I said fuck it and I just didn't care that much about recording. So, take my word for it, don't take my word for it, whatever. The reason for today's video isn't entirely about 3.0 anyways. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think Star Citizen is going to explode on the launch pad, or best case scenario, just sort of fizzle out. Now, to preface this, for those of you who are unfamiliar with my channel, I backed Star Citizen in early 2013, and over the years I put roughly $8,000 in funding towards this game. I was an avid fanboy. I read all the things, I watched all the things, I played all the shallow empty patches with glee, even though the gameplay was nowhere to be found. I would still cruise around in the various game modes envisioning what was to come. My first 3 years as a Star Citizen backer were pretty much pure bliss. It wasn't until around the beginning of 2016 that I started to realize it was a whole lot less bliss and a lot more blissful ignorance than anything. I think it started with the release dates, honestly. Chris Roberts would promise features were going to come out at insert year. And then time would come and there would always be some new excuse for why they weren't going to be arriving. And around the same time, CIG also started with the whole backers are money pinatas business style, like war bonds, new concepts as fast as they could churn them out, old concepts that would have been stagnant for years, just sort of collecting dust, selling concepts that were originally pitched as limited concepts. If CIG could turn a buck from a backer, they found a way to do it. And this really came to a head for me personally when they announced the coming death of the $0 CCU because it messes with our ship balancing. Like, come on, really? And to add on to that, they also tried to introduce a $5 flat fee to every CCU purchase. Like, holy shit, really? All of these things, and honestly a handful more, kind of started me down the path of looking back at Star Citizen with a cynical lens I previously had never wanted to use on it. For instance, when I would see a backer on the forums talking about his ideal Star Citizen adventure he was excited to one day have, and then see another backer on the forums talking about his completely different game experience that he was excited to play, at that point it just sort of dawned on me that Chris Roberts has pitched the ideal dream game to every backer, regardless of how contradicting those visions of Star Citizen are. CIG has made literally millions by pitching vague, unexplained ideas to its backers and just letting them run wild with it. There's no wrong answers, and everybody's dream is a winner. And while the community shares some blame in that example, CIG is equally or more so to blame for their handling of the game. They always talk about how mechanics and systems might work. It could be like this, or we envision it to be something like, for fuck's sake, Chris, we're at 5 years and counting. How do you not have the fundamentals of your game ironed out yet? And I know this is the part where the apologists start in with the whole, well, they're building the foundation of the game to come. But the issue is, they don't seem to know what direction they want the game to go in the first place. 1 year it's all about being a space combat sim, and the next it's about being a space shooter, like Arma. And then the next year it's we're going to make a great role-playing MMO experience with face-over IP immersion and house building and farming and stuff. Now, before you get defensive and you shut out anything I say, at least consider this. Star Citizen is trying to do everything all at once. A revolutionary shooter, space sim, planetary gameplay and building, and an MMO. But how many new shooter IPs have we seen come along and wave their dicks about saying, we're going to be the next Call of Duty? Or how many MMOs come around and say, we're going to be the best massive multiplayer experience since World of Warcraft? The next best space sim, flight sim? There are countless titles come and gone who were focused on one specific type of genre, but the fans of the genre toss them aside and the respective kings of the hill remain in place. Yet, Chris Roberts somehow thinks that Star Citizen is going to do them all, and somehow manage to balance them all in a competitive player versus player environment on top of it. Okay, Icarus, if you say so. And I think it's incredibly telling that CIG really hasn't nailed down just what they want Star Citizen to be yet. And instead of developing a core functional game, they're developing 20 different things all at once and hoping that when they mash it all together someday in the future, it just works. Never mind whether or not it plays as a fun and enjoyable game, because we can cross the is it enjoyable gameplay bridge when we get there, right guys? The issue with CIG trying to do everything all at once is further only compounded by the elephant in the room: funding. There's a very good reason why CIG is attempting to milk you left and right. We're nearly 6 years into development and 160 million plus down the drain with barely the parts of a skeleton of a game starting to come together. And the fact of the matter is, most people who are interested in Star Citizen are probably already backers. And most of those backers who are whales probably already own everything they're interested in owning. And because CIG are habitual designers of the new better thing than what you had, which punches above its weight class also, most people are melting the old and buying the new with store credit because there's no point in having a brand new fighter that's really incredible and keeping your old one that's now completely outclassed. I mean, how stupid would you have to be to do that? And this is usually the point where defenders of the game are going to point to the funding tracker and say, oh, but CIG is making fat stacks every month. Mad money. So this is the part where I don my tinfoil hat and highlight two very, very important things. If you take nothing else in this video seriously, I beg you to consider these two things. Exhibit A, the "We are blank citizen strong" tracker. The current tally at the time of this video is something like 1,900,000. Yet CIG knows for a fact that a big chunk of these are actually empty accounts made for referral reward spamming and other random things that you can use empty accounts for. Yet they count it. So I propose to you this. What level of accuracy do we know the funding tracker is at? Do they include those sales that are bought with store credit? Do we really know that these funding numbers are genuine? The answer is we have no clue, and we never will because, well, Exhibit B. Chris Roberts and CIG originally promised a release date of 2014 for Star Citizen, and there was a terms of service clause in there that said, if we run 2 years over due date, we're going to publicly release our financials to show where the money is going and how it's being spent. Guess what clause got snipped out of their terms of service in 2016, right as that due date was coming up? That's right, citizens, your super transparent saints gutted their terms of service of the one clause that might have caused backers to jump on CIG's ass about their timelines and development and, where they're spending the money. Huh, I wonder why they would have done that. That's odd. The fact of the matter is, CIG is literally a money fire. With the amount of high-cost talent hired into the project, number of studios they maintain, working on 2 games at the same time, doing motion capture work with A-list actors at the most expensive mocap studio in the world, and having to do reshoots on top of it, if one thing should be obvious at this point, it's that CIG really needs to have their shit together, right? So, let's go back to Talking 3.0 for a moment and why it was the bullet in the brain pan of my poor puppy. I remember coming hot off the disappointment of No Man's Sky to Gamescom 2016 Star Citizen Demo. And oh shit, did Chris Roberts blow the world away with his planetary landing, walking through Levski Station, going up the elevator while Glenn hovered outside in his Freelancer. Chris even made some snide little remarks about Star Citizen being a real multiplayer game, no doubt sending the development team of No Man's Sky into a shame coma. And after originally pitching that Star Citizen 3.0 would land before the end of the year 2016, it was with a lot of sadness, but also understanding that backers received the news in January 2017 that 3.0 was going to be delayed until around June 2017. Hey, no problem. More time to polish what they had done and make sure everything was in working order for a grand public reveal. Right? Right. And yet, after many months of delay, we finally got to see 3.0 pushed to the PTU in November 2017, more than a year after it was demoed in Gamescom 2016. And anyone who doesn't have their head in the sand should be asking, what the flying fuck were you doing for the last year, CIG? From the time you showed off the majesty of 3.0 in October 2016 to the fucking mess you dropped on us in November 2017, what actually fucking happened? Did somebody pull a Toy Story 3 and accidentally delete the only copy of 3.0 you guys had off of the servers? And, you've just spent most of 2017 scrambling to remake it all? So, I wanted to highlight the clusterfuck of 3.0 and the fact that we saw a more stable, better performing version of 3.0 in 2016 than the mess we were given a year later, because it highlights that CIG has done nothing if not show they are consistent in two areas always. One, finding ways to get money from backers, and two, doing an absolutely terrible job of managing time. So it kind of begs the question, why do they have so little to show for after 5 years? I firmly believe the answer to that lies at the head of the snake. Chris Roberts, hallowed be his name. Now, a lot of backers are quick to tell you that Star Citizen is supposed to be the realized vision of what Chris wanted Freelancer to be years back. But, he didn't have the tech and the money and the blah and the excuses. What they don't tell you about Freelancer is that Chris Roberts was pushed off of the project before it completed. And, that during his time at the helm of Freelancer, it was met with delay after delay after delay. And what were the causes of these delays? The same thing that plagued Star Citizen, honestly. Chris Roberts. Now, at this point, I've talked to or heard from enough people who've worked for or with Chris that one aspect remains the same amongst all of their stories. Chris micromanages everything to the tiniest detail, and he's also a serial redoer. Need an asset done? Okay, no problem. The team's going to go ahead and crunch that one out for you to meet the deadline. Boom. Delivered. Oh, what? Chris wants to go in a totally new direction and scrap it all? Awesome. Solid. You can also tell by a lot of the Star Citizen concepts that Chris is easily impressioned by outside sources, i.e. movies. There's a reason so many of the ships look similar, if not directly like knockoffs of other intellectual properties. So, for those of you over at CIG, I hope you guys are ready for the new Star Wars movie and whatever things come up from Chris after he sees that.
Failure, you can't trust people on the internet.
Alright. I'm willing to pretend that the people I've talked to aren't reliable sources. For the record, I don't believe that, but for the sake of the argument, I'll play devil's advocate and just say they aren't. The issue is, their statements only reinforced impressions of Chris that I already had from being an RSI subscriber and looking through all the concept vault images where they show you the design process, and literally every single detail in the concept has to be sent from the artist to his boss, then to Chris. Every single tiny stupid change has to be sent from the artist to his boss to Chris, then back to the artist, and then repeated. There are multiple notes on concept design pages where the artist is informed that Chris wants to change this just cuz. Like some random stupid detail, Chris is like, oh yeah, do this differently. And Chris, he's just a terrible leader. And the lackluster progress Star Citizen has is just further evidence on top of the already mounting pile that Chris is just not good at managing. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, I was a huge supporter of this game. It promised me everything I've ever wanted out of a space game, so how could I not be? And I mean, Chris and friends got on camera every week and they'd tell me how incredible things are going, so I'm going to be flying around in my fleet of ships in no time, right? I just need to be patient. The next patch is going to be the one. The thing with Star Citizen is the community itself is an insulator. If you have dissenting opinions about the game or the company, you're kind of just edged out of any platform to express these concerns or opinions. There's the classic, you sound like you're stressing out too much about this. Maybe just take a couple months off and come back later on and see what the next patch has to offer. That's the go-to for complainers who, before they complain, profess how much they love the project, but, they have a little minor concern here or there. And for the people who are actually critical of design choices or mechanics, there's the good old tried and true,
You don't get game development. This has never been done before. How many games have you made?
for the record, I've made as many video games as you have, asshole. And of course, there's always the go-to,
Well, you should just get a refund and go play insert game.
for anybody who is really being negative about the game. And that one's honestly, that's probably my personal favorite, because these fans are telling another backer to go refund and leave the project because they don't understand how early access alphas work. But at the same time, CIG's customer support is going to tell that same backer that they aren't entitled to a refund because they've delivered on their pledge. So I'm just trying to clarify, are we in early access or have they delivered a product? I'm really confused on that one. So I bring up the community for two reasons. First of all, I want to address the cult stigma. I'm going to go ahead and read off a post from an outsider who has not backed Star Citizen, but came across Star Citizen through the shitty Kickstarter subreddit. User Sarah Solo writes, So I came here 2 or 3 months ago after Star Citizen was posted on the shitty Kickstarter subreddit. Before that day, I had heard about Star Citizen to the extent that I knew it was a game and that it was popular. Anyways, in doing my due diligence to see whether or not they were a scam failure, as I do with all Kickstarters that get posted, I noticed a fascinating trend that you really don't see with any other game, or even subreddit for that matter. For starters, the shitty Kickstarters thread was heavily brigaded to the point where it was the most commented on thread on the relatively small subreddit. Normally when this happens, it's usually the guy who created the Kickstarter campaign coming to shill for his product, or to argue how it's not a scam, but this time it wasn't, so I was genuinely curious to learn more. I went to their subreddit and sorted by top plus all time, and didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. But then I went to sort by controversial, and I noticed that you couldn't even do that because they've disabled the option. Name one other subreddit on this entire site that does that, but luckily, you can just type the URL in manually and view the most controversial threads, so I did, and it was quite a different scene. This game's community is about as close as you can get to a cult without actually having the elements needed for the official label. Everything else is there. Controversial filter is disabled, automatic flare of new user / low karma, calls for users with said flare to be prevented from posting, constant celebrations for new funding milestones, a tactic done by multi-level marketing companies to encourage sales, automatic dismissal of criticisms from users who haven't earned the right to, automatic acceptance of criticism from users who have, implying that they are not actually concerned with the validity of criticisms, but rather the need to appease. Telling concerned users to take a break and check back in a few months dilutes the voice of like-minded users. And at the end of the day, I can't help but wonder if the community's refusal to hold the developers' feet to the fire has enabled the developers to drag their feet in completing the project. It's because of the behaviors that Sarah Solo talks about that it took me so long to wake up from the bullshit CIG pulls. The community insulates itself from negative opinions on literally every platform. There are so many resources out there that go over so many issues you will never hear about it as an ordinary citizen backer. The Goons, for instance, have a treasure trove of shitty things CIG has done over the years, but no ordinary backer is ever going to hear about it because those users are shunned and shut down on RSI forums and Reddit, which means you would have to go pay $10 to register on something awful forums to even see most of it. The other issue is Derek Smart. He's become a pariah to Chris Roberts' Messiah, and as a result, any backer who leans away from the grace of Roberts is taunted as being a Derek Smart, which you're indoctrinated to know being a Derek is bad, and thus scared back into the warm embrace of Christ Roberts, praise be. This drives us towards reason number 2 for bringing up the community: accountability. When Star Citizen launched its Kickstarter, it was with much celebration that CIG told us we could
Stop the evil publishers.
from ruining our game's future. We backers were the publisher, and because there wouldn't be an evil Electronic Arts or Ubisoft looming over CIG's shoulder, we could expect them to do the game right. with the backer's interest at heart. The problem is, CIG has no higher authority than Chris Roberts. This means CIG is beholden to no one but the people funding the game every month. And through the culture of backers we have today, that means CIG may as well be God, because the overly passionate backers do a damn good job of ensuring that anyone who would criticize CIG openly is shunned into the shadows. And to make the whole scene worse, you import Ben Lesnick and his crack team of volunteer moderators from his shitty little Wing Commander Chris Roberts erotic fanfic site as volunteer mods for the RSI forums, and you have a legit propaganda machine that would make Hitler come in his underoos. It is for all of these reasons that I made a point of criticizing CIG's newest funding concept, which is future internet dirt, because backers have allowed CIG to nudge and push on the limits of what they can monetize and sell in an already pay-to-win under development game. And with this newest sale, backers have yet again told CIG they can nudge a little more of the tip inside of their asses. But you can be damn sure CIG isn't going to be happy with just the tip. No one has ever stuck just the tip in and said, yeah, this is fine, this is enough, I'm happy here. So the reason I walked away from Star Citizen wasn't just because CIG has turned into everything they kickstarted to avoid. It wasn't just their shady business practices and constant alienating of older backers, war bond sales, CCU changes, price policies that change as it suits them instead of adhering to the promised pricing plans, the fact that they're more interested in being a JPEG factory than a game studio, or that 3.0 was rushed out as an unplayable shit show just to boost anniversary sales. It was also a large part the community. When I started this channel, I wanted it to be a place to look critically at Star Citizen, but in a way that would help improve the game. Yet, even without sharing my content to any mainstream Star Citizen platforms, it was clear from the comments that no matter how rational researched or evidence-packed my videos were, I was wrong because I was saying the mean things about Star Citizen. I used to believe that if I just put a little bit more work into it or hunted down all the sources and links, I could start a dialogue with these people and maybe work towards improving major game issues like turret gameplay or cockpit design, whatever. I'm honestly over it at this point. I've come to accept that no amount of reasoning or facts will ever break their armor, which leads into this next bit. It's been my policy on this channel to never take a side on the whole pledge deep or refund while you can little war that surrounds Star Citizen. And as I part ways with Star Citizen, I want to leave you guys with two things. The first is a word of advice. Research. If you're pledging more than $100 to Star Citizen, do your research now. As they say, the truth is out there. And lastly, over the last few months, I've had a lot of people PMing me and asking me how to get out of Star Citizen. So with this video, I will be including a link to the Star Citizen refund subreddit. If you really want out of Star Citizen, this subreddit is a trove of resources and support. While I still believe that refunding or backing Star Citizen is a personal choice everyone needs to make on their own, I would feel wrong if I didn't urge caution to those who are thinking of putting more money into Star Citizen. With all of that said though, this is my last dedicated Star Citizen video. I know a lot of you are urging me to continue covering Star Citizen, and I appreciate that you value my perspective enough to want me to continue discussing the game, even after I've now cashed out. But I think this is where the roller coaster ends for me. If something newsworthy happens with CIG or Star Citizen, then I'm sure I'll likely chime in. But I would consider this my official discharge of service as a Star Citizen-focused channel. I hope I'll find other interesting games to play and discuss with you all, but if I don't, I really truly hope you find another home that gives you an unbiased coverage of Star Citizen in the future. At any rate, I'm FailureToReport. Over and out.
Buy ships, 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 Buy ships.
Answer the Call 2025.